Imagine waking up in a city that glows with silence. Pyongyang before dawn looks like a sleeping stage, empty streets, pale towers, and the faint hum of electricity that never quite reaches every home. From the top floors of the capital's uniform apartment blocks, you can see the statues first. Towering bronze figures of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, standing guard over a nation that no longer belongs to time. The year is 2025, and the air itself feels heavy, as if every breath must pass through layers of fear and obedience before reaching your lungs. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The radio still wakes families before sunrise, broadcasting hymns to the supreme leader. Mothers in grey coats straighten portraits on the wall. Kim Il-sung on the left, Kim Jong-il on the right, Kim Jong-un in the center. The order never changes. The dust is wiped carefully with trembling hands, because inspectors still come, unannounced, and one forgotten speck can mean re-education. Outside, a new poster covers the old ones. It shows a missile rising through the clouds, with the slogan, "The future is ours." But no one in Pyongyang believes in the future anymore. In 2025, North Korea stands at the edge of a silent collapse, not a visible one, not like the fall of the Berlin Wall or the Arab Spring, but an invisible unraveling. Its people are starving again, though official broadcasts say the harvest was bountiful. Its soldiers are growing restless, though they still march in perfect rhythm on state television. And its leader, Kim Jong-un, is aging faster than the nation can pretend. His health, once a guarded rumor, has become a quiet obsession among the elite. Each morning, cars with tinted windows race toward the leadership compounds outside Pyongyang, carrying doctors, bodyguards, and fear. At night, whispers travel faster than electricity. The border with China, once a lifeline of illegal trade, has been sealed under the pretext of anti-pandemic control. Smugglers have disappeared, satellite phones no longer work, and the flow of rice, medicine, and information has dried up. Only the military convoys move freely now, trucks that carry more secrecy than supplies. The regime calls it self-reliance. The people call it starvation. A few miles from the capital in the countryside, families survive on corn husks and grass soup. The children's laughter sounds brittle, like glass about to break. They still recite poems about Kim Jong-un's genius, but their voices are thinner, their eyes duller. Teachers tell them that the outside world is diseased, collapsing, and envious of their purity. But even children know when someone is lying. They see the soldiers stealing food, the officials' wives wearing imported clothes, and the power cuts that last days. The surveillance system has evolved. What used to be neighborhood informants, the old women who watched from their windows, has now become something far more precise. In 2025, North Korea's new People's Data System links every citizen to a digital file, updated in real time. Phones, though primitive, track conversations through voice recognition. Facial scanners have appeared in workplaces and schools. Loyalty scores are calculated by unseen algorithms. Participation in rallies, enthusiasm during parades, number of visits to revolutionary monuments. A low score means fewer food rations. A very low score means disappearance. Inside the regime's inner circle, paranoia rules. Kim Jong-un's inner cabinet is smaller than ever, a ring of fear tightening around him. The purges of the past decade, generals, diplomats, even family members, have created a void where trust once existed. Now, loyalty is performative, measured in tears shed at ceremonies and applause lasting longer than reason allows. The elites live in guarded luxury, drinking imported whiskey in underground lounges, but they do not laugh freely. They know that microphones are hidden even in the marble walls. The outside world watches with tired fascination. Sanctions remain. New technologies of control have replaced old ideology, and the United Nations continues to release reports no one in Pyongyang will ever read. But something darker is happening, something that even intelligence analysts struggle to quantify. North Korea is no longer just a dictatorship. It is an experiment in total isolation, a society attempting to erase all evidence of the outside world's existence. The last defectors who escaped before the border closed speak of a strange transformation, less propaganda, more silence. The regime no longer needs to shout about its victories, it only needs to erase doubt. Every screen shows images of Kim Jong-un smiling beside soldiers and scientists, but behind that smile lies a new strategy, a digital curtain replacing the old iron one. State-approved virtual networks simulate global access, feeding citizens a curated illusion of connection. They believe they are online. They are not. In the military academies, young officers train with artificial intelligence tools imported secretly from Russia and China. Their goal is not defense but control, predictive policing, emotion analysis, and biometric loyalty testing. Soldiers wear devices that monitor pulse and micro-expressions during political education sessions. If their hearts fail to beat faster during the anthem, they are reported. The human soul has become measurable, and in a system built on fear, measurability is power. Meanwhile, Pyongyang's skyline continues to rise, hollow towers built for prestige, not people. Foreign journalists, when rarely allowed in, are shown the same streets, the same model families, the same manicured parks. But if you walk a few blocks away from those routes, the facade crumbles. You find half-finished buildings without plumbing, apartments with no heat, entire floors occupied by silence. At night the lights are turned off not because of austerity, but because there is nothing left to illuminate. And yet, amid the darkness, the myth persists. The cult of Kim is evolving, adapting to modern loneliness. Propaganda films now portray him not as a divine being, but as a caring father, the last protector of Korean purity in a world that has lost its morals. In one scene, he walks through a snowstorm, offering warmth to children. In another, he looks up at the stars, saying that our destiny lies among them. The message is clear. North Korea may be suffering, but it is suffering for a cosmic purpose. In secret gatherings, students whisper about foreign songs. Smuggled USB drives still circulate, despite the death penalty. A single K-pop track, a fragment of a foreign film, becomes an act of rebellion. These small acts of curiosity, dangerous, fleeting, are the sparks that the regime fears most. Because once a person hears another kind of world, silence loses its grip. The famine of 2025 is not as visible as the one in the 1990s. There are no public collapses, no rivers filled with corpses. This time it's quieter, controlled. The government has perfected ration management, distributing just enough food to keep the population obedient, just enough hope to prevent collapse. Hunger is now a tool, calibrated by algorithm. Entire villages disappear from maps, replaced by reports of reorganization. Those who question it vanish into the re-education zones. Vast compounds disguised as factories surrounded by barbed wire and fog. Satellite images show new constructions deep in North Hamgyong province. Long, narrow barracks, smokeless chimneys, and dirt roads leading to nowhere. Analysts call them shadow zones. Locals call them places you don't come back from. It is here that the state sends those who have failed digitally, those whose loyalty scores fall too low, whose emotional responses deviate from the ideal. In 2025, punishment has become automated. Foreign intelligence agencies try to decode the regime's next move. Some believe Kim Jong-un plans to create a permanent wartime state, a society in constant mobilization where crisis becomes normality. Others whisper of his secret network of luxury hideouts in the mountains, connected by underground tunnels built decades ago by his father. There are rumors of new nuclear tests on hidden islands and of foreign scientists brought in under false names. But the truth is simpler and far more terrifying. Kim's greatest weapon is not his missiles. It is his ability to make his people believe that suffering is sacred. At the same time, cracks are appearing in the walls. Small networks of traders, hackers, and former officials have begun sharing information through encrypted frequencies near the border. They call themselves the Whisper Line. They broadcast short messages in code, guiding desperate families towards safer escape routes through Russia and Laos. The government tries to jam the signals, but the voices keep returning. They speak of freedom, of life beyond the barbed wire, of the possibility of remembering. Inside Pyongyang's elite compounds, the children of the privileged are beginning to ask forbidden questions. They have seen glimpses of the outside world during official trips, cities filled with light, people who laugh without fear. They return home changed. Some disappear soon after. Others pretend to forget. But their silence carries the weight of realization. The future they were promised no longer exists. And so 2025 becomes a year of contradictions. Modern control wrapped around ancient fear. A regime armed with algorithms but haunted by ghosts. A nation pretending to thrive while starving in silence, and a people trapped between worship and awakening. If you stand at the Yalu River at night, the border between North Korea and China, you can see the contrast with your own eyes. On one side, neon lights, music, motion. On the other, darkness. That darkness has a shape, a texture. It is the absence of choice, of truth, of memory. Yet sometimes across that black expanse you can see a faint light flickering. A candle, a phone, a signal, someone, somewhere, refusing to disappear. That is where the story of North Korea's dark future truly begins. Not in its parades or its palaces, but in the quiet defiance of those who still dream. The government calls them traitors. History will call them something else. Because the greatest secret of North Korea is not its weapons, its tunnels, or its leaders. It is the resilience of the human spirit, fragile, trembling, and yet indestructible. In 2025, that spirit remains the last thing the regime cannot fully control. And as the night deepens over the Korean peninsula, the question lingers like a warning whispered by the wind. How long can a system built on silence survive the sound of a single truth? It begins with the sound of applause. Endless, mechanical applause echoing through the Grand People's Study House in Pyongyang. The cameras pan across rows of faces, soldiers, workers, students, all smiling in perfect unison as Kim Jong-un stands at the podium. His body looks different now, thinner, paler, his smile tighter. The speech is about scientific sovereignty, the regime's newest phrase for a future built without foreign influence. But beneath the orchestrated enthusiasm, something feels off. The air is tense, rehearsed, and beneath it, fear hums like a low-voltage current. Outside, loudspeakers project his words across the city, their echoes bleeding into every apartment block and market stall. Our destiny, he says, is not to imitate the world, but to outlast it. The phrase repeats, looping for hours. Children memorize it in schools. Workers repeat it before meals. It is not a slogan anymore. It is a survival code. By 2025, the illusion of normalcy in North Korea has perfected itself into an art form. To the untrained eye, life appears to move forward. There are new buildings, new uniforms, even new television dramas. But all of it is theater. Behind every facade lies a system of control so intricate that even its creators no longer fully understand it. The Ministry of State Security has divided the population into invisible layers. At the top are the revolutionary lineages, families whose ancestors fought alongside Kim Il-sung. They enjoy electricity, food, and education. Beneath them are the wavering classes, who live in permanent suspicion, their loyalty constantly evaluated. At the bottom are the hostile elements, descendants of landowners, defectors, or religious believers. These people exist without rights, without names, and sometimes without records. But the true revelation of 2025 is the emergence of what insiders call the silent layer. This new category doesn't appear on any official list. It consists of citizens who comply outwardly but have emotionally withdrawn from the system. They attend rallies, they salute, they chant, but their hearts are gone. They are ghosts living inside their own lives. The regime fears them more than open rebels, because indifference cannot be re-educated. To fight this invisible rebellion, the state turns inward, developing a psychological weapon it calls thought reinforcement training. Modeled after old Soviet techniques, but updated with neurofeedback tools, it measures emotional responses during indoctrination sessions. When a subject shows insufficient enthusiasm, electrodes deliver mild shocks. It's not torture, at least not by official standards. It's emotional correction. In the shadow of Pyongyang's showcase universities, another institution thrives, the Institute of Behavioral Loyalty. It trains the regime's newest generation of emotion officers. Their job is to read the faces of others, detect deception, and manipulate group sentiment. Every public gathering is carefully orchestrated through them. They decide when the crowd laughs, when it cries, when it fears. Society itself has become a performance directed by invisible hands. The revelation does not stop there. In 2025, the state introduces what it calls the Vision Project. Officially, it's a nationwide campaign to bring light and modernity to rural areas through solar technology. In truth, it's a surveillance initiative, solar panels equipped with micro-cameras, microphones, and heat sensors. They monitor who gathers at night, who whispers in barns, who dares to pray. The sun becomes an eye. At the same time, the regime invests heavily in propaganda targeting the elite, not the masses. Through private screenings and exclusive events, Kim Jong-un cultivates a mythology of sacrifice among his inner circle. He speaks of being chosen by history to preserve the Korean soul against Western corruption. The message is intoxicating. To betray him is not just treason, it is heresy. The outside world sees only fragments, satellite images, leaked testimonies, occasional defectors, but they cannot capture the atmosphere, the quiet terror that seeps into daily life. Imagine buying rice from a black market vendor, knowing that the person standing next to you could be an informant. Imagine laughing too loudly at a joke and realizing someone is watching. Imagine wanting to pray, but being unable to find words that aren't dangerous. Information itself has become the ultimate contraband. In 2025, a single foreign news article can buy a family's silence or destroy their lives. Traders smuggle micro SD cards hidden inside bars of soap, beneath shoe soles, inside rice sacks. Once these cards carried South Korean dramas. Now they carry documentaries, speeches, entire libraries compressed into a few megabytes. Those who see them say it feels like touching another dimension, proof that freedom exists somewhere beyond the fog. But the regime has learned too. It plants false materials, decoy drives filled with manipulated footage, showing chaos abroad. In one video, New York burns under riots. In another, European cities are deserted, their citizens fleeing disease and famine. "See," says the announcer, "the outside world envies your purity." Truth and illusion now share the same device. Beneath the surface, another structure rises, the internal internet, known as the Kwangmyong 3.0. This closed system gives citizens the illusion of digital progress. There are apps, profiles, even simulated social media feeds. But everything you post is reviewed. Every like is logged. The system rewards conformity with digital badges redeemable for extra food rations. It is gamified obedience. For the young, it feels like progress. For the old, it feels like the end of thought. Among the military, technology brings new dangers. Soldiers stationed near the DMZ wear smart helmets that record their gaze and pulse. If they look toward the south too often, if their heartbeats spike when foreign lights appear, they are questioned. Curiosity is now measurable and punishable. Still, cracks continue to form. In the border provinces, hunger drives people toward the rivers. The patrols have doubled, the fences electrified, but desperation has its own intelligence. Entire families vanish into the mountains, leaving behind empty huts and silence. When locals ask where they went, the official answer is always the same: they were relocated. Inside the elite compounds, rumors spread that Kim Jong-un is preparing a monumental announcement, something that will redefine the nation's place in history. Some say it's a new constitution, one that will declare him eternal guardian of the revolution. Others whisper of an artificial island being built off the west coast, a self-sufficient paradise where the leader and his chosen can retreat if the world collapses. The project is codenamed Eternal Spring. Construction workers are forbidden from speaking about it. Those who do vanish. And then there's the church. It still exists. Not the official one shown to foreign visitors, but the hidden one buried in whispers and darkness. Every Sunday in a few scattered homes, people still gather. They sing without sound, lips moving to songs they remember from before. Their Bibles are handwritten, pages smuggled piece by piece. They pray not for escape, but for endurance. In a country where truth is forbidden, faith itself becomes resistance. The government calls them ideological terrorists. It offers rewards for their capture. Children are told that believers eat poison and worship ghosts. But when a child sees his mother's eyes shining in secret prayer, he learns something no school can erase. That quiet defiance travels through generations like a secret code. Meanwhile, the world debates, sanctions, diplomacy, aid, but rarely listens. Humanitarian organizations struggle to deliver food past military checkpoints. Every bag of rice becomes a transaction of loyalty. The state uses famine as leverage, demanding concessions in exchange for access. Western nations argue over strategy, while North Koreans sell their wedding rings for flour. In Pyongyang, the atmosphere grows increasingly surreal. Theaters host patriotic operas, while hospitals run out of antibiotics. Universities teach quantum physics without electricity, and yet the illusion holds. The regime understands something most outsiders do not. Control doesn't require belief, only exhaustion. When people are too tired to hope, obedience becomes reflex. The revelation of 2025 is that North Korea has evolved beyond dictatorship. It is now a living organism, a vast neural network of fear and dependence. Every citizen is both prisoner and warden, each action feeding back into the system. It has achieved what other totalitarian states only dreamed of, self-sustaining oppression. At the same time, small miracles persist. A soldier smuggles a Bible into a labor camp and reads it by the light of a smuggled phone. A mother teaches her daughter the meaning of the word freedom using pebbles in the dirt. A hacker in the borderlands creates a radio signal that interrupts the state broadcast for 10 seconds, enough to whisper, "You are not alone." But the state notices everything, and in 2025, noticing is death. New punishment units called correctional brigades appear, tasked with dealing with psychological deviation. They don't execute. They erase identities, family histories, digital traces. People simply stop existing. Their homes are sealed, their names removed from registries, their memories rewritten. Families learn to speak of them in the past tense, as if they never were. Inside the Workers' Party headquarters, Kim Jong-un convenes a secret council. He speaks of the coming storm, of foreign subversion, of internal betrayal, of the need for absolute purification. His voice trembles with fatigue, but his words are ice. If we are to survive, he says, we must become gods. The men around him nod, terrified. None of them understand that in trying to become gods, they have already lost their humanity. Outside, a winter storm covers Pyongyang in white. The statues of the Kims glisten with frost, their eyes empty, unblinking. Loudspeakers announce that the harvest was a success. Children march with red flags. And somewhere, in a small, unheated room, a man writes forbidden words on a scrap of paper, words that might never be read but that prove he existed. In North Korea, even the act of remembering is rebellion. And as the snow continues to fall, covering the city like a shroud, one truth becomes clear. The regime no longer fears the outside world. It fears its own reflection, because deep inside its perfect machinery, something is beginning to awaken. Not an army, not a movement, but a quiet realization spreading from mind to mind. That obedience is not the same as faith. That survival is not the same as life. And once that realization takes root, no wall, no algorithm, no God can stop it. Night in North Korea is unlike night anywhere else. It doesn't descend, it suffocates. It is the color of absence or of things unsaid, unseen, unremembered. From the air, satellites capture only darkness where light should be. From the ground, the sky looks closer, heavier, pressing down on lives already flattened by fear. Somewhere in that darkness, a child wakes to the sound of boots. It happens quietly, without warning. A truck stops outside a farmhouse. Men in grey uniforms step out. Their faces are blank, their movements practiced. The mother holds her breath. The father looks at his daughter, not with words, but with the look of someone trying to memorize a face before it disappears. Within minutes, they're gone. The neighbors will say nothing. Tomorrow, another family will move in, and the story will reset, as if the first had never existed. This is the rhythm of survival in 2025, vanishing as routine, memory as danger. The dissent begins not with violence, but with hunger. It seeps into every crevice of life. Stomachs shrinking, tempers thinning, thoughts slowing. The regime calls it temporary adjustment. The people call it winter. Markets that once buzzed with whispered trades now stand half empty. Prices shift daily. Rice becomes more expensive than gold. The government blames foreign enemies. The people blame the sky, and no one dares to blame the state. In the northern provinces, mothers grind tree bark into powder and mix it with cornmeal. Children's skin turns grey. Old men vanish into the forest to find roots, never to return. Yet every week, parades continue in Pyongyang. The television shows bright faces, soldiers dancing, fireworks exploding over a city of ghosts. The announcer calls it the dawn of a new era. For those watching from their cold apartments, it is the end of hope dressed as celebration. Deep inside the mountains near Chagang province lies a place locals call Camp 83. Officially, it does not exist. Unofficially, it is where those accused of thought infection are sent. The guards are told they are protecting the nation from disease. The prisoners are told nothing. Each morning begins with a song broadcast through hidden speakers, the anthem of the leader, played on repeat. Prisoners must bow toward the sound before they are fed. Those who refuse are marked. Marked prisoners never return from work detail. The camp is a world without seasons. In summer, dust replaces air. In winter, frost covers the corpses before the guards can bury them. But there is something more terrible than death here: forgetting. Prisoners are forbidden to speak their real names. They are given numbers, then trained to answer to them. After months, many forget who they were. A man once whispered to a fellow inmate, "If I die here, tell the world my name was Han." The other man nodded, but the next day, he forgot. Outside the camps, life in the cities follows its own choreography of despair. Workers line up before dawn to bow before portraits, then march to factories that no longer produce anything useful. Propaganda calls it productive devotion. The only thing produced is exhaustion. Yet even exhaustion becomes currency. Those who faint at work are accused of sabotage. Those who smile too much are suspected of foreign influence. The safest emotion is none at all. There is a story whispered in Pyongyang about a man who laughed. It happened at a bus stop on a hot summer afternoon. The radio had just announced another miracle project, completed under the leader's guidance. A hydroelectric plant that would light every home. The man laughed quietly, a reflex, a slip of disbelief. A woman nearby reported him. That night he was taken. The next morning his wife was told he had volunteered for relocation. His children were given new parents. The bus stop remains, but no one laughs there anymore. By 2025, even grief has been mechanized. When someone dies, the mourning period is state-regulated. 3 minutes of silence during which loudspeakers instruct citizens how to weep correctly. Too much emotion is seen as protest, too little as apathy. Funerals are filmed by local officials to monitor participation. The dead belong to the state as much as the living. Inside hospitals, doctors treat starvation with saline and lies. Medicine is scarce, but ideology is abundant. Posters on the walls read, "Pain is proof of loyalty." Patients whisper prayers, careful not to be overheard. Religion, though outlawed, still breathes in secret corners, in coded words, in songs that sound like lullabies, in gestures too subtle to name. A mother tracing a cross on her child's palm before sleep. Her grandmother humming forbidden hymns to the rhythm of the rain. Each act, a defiance disguised as love. In the capital, Kim Jong-un's face watches from every surface. Billboards, coins, school books, even ration cards. But it is no longer just his image that enforces obedience. It is his absence. Rumors of his ill health have multiplied. Some say he suffered a stroke. Others claim he rarely leaves his compound. In his silence, fear grows louder. Ministers compete to outdo one another in displays of loyalty, arresting subordinates to prove vigilance. The result is chaos wrapped in discipline, a system devouring itself to appear intact. The army, once the backbone of the regime, begins to fracture. Soldiers at remote outposts trade weapons for food. Officers falsify reports to hide desertions. Yet propaganda shows them smiling, parading, saluting. In reality, the uniforms hang loose on bodies that have forgotten what victory means. When the border patrol finds deserters, they are executed in silence, their families relocated to labor zones. The message is clear. The nation has no room for hunger, only sacrifice. In the countryside, farmers whisper about a prophecy, that when the rivers dry and the statues crack, the regime will fall. No one knows where the rumor began. It spreads like wind, carried from village to village by traders and faith. The authorities respond by repairing statues, painting rivers on walls, rewriting maps. The illusion must not break, yet beneath the surface, something stirs. Not rebellion, but weariness too deep to control. One night, in a small village near Hisan, a teacher gathers her students after class. She closes the door, lowers her voice, and tells them a story. Not from the state curriculum, but from memory. About a world where people speak freely, where light never goes out, where truth does not need permission. The children listen as if hearing fiction. When she finishes, they sit in silence. Then one asks, "Teacher, if that world exists, why don't we go there?" She smiles, her eyes glistening. "Because we were taught not to see it." The next morning, the teacher is gone. Dissent is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, slow, almost graceful. It hides behind routine. In Pyongyang, a young engineer spends his nights designing artificial stars, drones equipped with LED clusters to illuminate parades. He knows they are pointless, but he cannot stop. At least they bring light, he tells himself. When one malfunctions and falls, killing 2 workers, the state blames sabotage. He is arrested. His wife receives his ashes weeks later, though she suspects they belong to someone else. The human mind adapts to horror. People learn to dream small. To survive another day becomes victory. To keep a secret becomes meaning. To remember becomes resistance. And yet, even in this twilight, there are moments of beauty, stolen seconds that prove humanity endures. A soldier sharing a cigarette with a prisoner. A child drawing the sun with real colors. A mother whispering her own name into her sleeping son's ear so he will not forget who she was. In 2025, the famine spreads quietly across provinces. Official reports describe redistribution efforts. Satellite images show barren fields. Aid convoys disappear. The government claims floods destroyed crops, but there were no floods. The truth is simpler. Corruption has consumed the harvest before it reached the hungry. Those in power feast while the poor eat shame. The dissent deepens when the state begins its new campaign, the Great Purity Movement. Every citizen must undergo ideological cleansing. Families gather for weekly confession meetings, forced to admit imaginary crimes. I did not work hard enough. I did not praise sincerely. The words mean nothing, but the ritual means everything. It keeps the population broken, dependent, united in guilt. Even the innocent must feel dirty. That is how control survives. At night, radio operators on the border intercept faint signals, whispers from across the Yalu River. They are messages from defectors trying to reach their families. "We are alive," one says. "Wait for spring." The operators are supposed to report these transmissions, but some listen instead. For a few seconds they hear truth. Then the static returns, and with it, silence. Kim Jong-un's palace grows quieter too. He no longer trusts his advisors. Meetings are shorter, meals lonelier. His children are seen only in official photographs. Inside those marble walls, paranoia blooms. He orders construction of new tunnels beneath Pyongyang, escape routes leading to underground chambers stocked with years of supplies. The workers never see daylight again. Their labor becomes the foundation of his fear. Meanwhile, the propaganda ministry produces films of astonishing scale. Entire villages are built as sets, thousands of extras rehearsing for months to portray the glorious future. When the cameras stop, the actors go home to darkness. But the film is shown repeatedly to foreign visitors, proof that the nation is thriving. Reality has become an inconvenience that can be edited out. As the year drags on, small uprisings flicker and die. In one mining town, workers refuse to attend the morning salute. Within hours, soldiers surround the area. By nightfall, the town is erased, its name removed from maps, its people scattered, yet even erasure leaves traces. A child somewhere remembers the name. A soldier remembers the screams. History, no matter how censored, has witnesses. In the camps, a new punishment emerges. Silence confinement. Prisoners are locked in dark cells with no sound, no light, no sense of time. Some lose their minds. Others begin to see visions, faces of lost families, glimpses of sunlight, fragments of memory. One woman, after weeks in the dark, begins to hum a tune from childhood. The guards beat her, but she keeps humming. In a place where words are forbidden, melody becomes rebellion. And then, a storm. The monsoon arrives late that year, bringing torrential rain to a land already bleeding. Bridges collapse, roads vanish, villages drown. The government declares it a foreign attack on the weather. State media shows Kim Jong-un inspecting damage in pristine clothes, untouched by mud. Behind him, soldiers drag corpses from the river. The cameras turn away. When the rain stops, a strange calm settles. The air smells of rot and resignation. In Pyongyang, ration lines stretch for blocks. The loudspeakers announce that the supreme leader suffers with you. But the people no longer believe he feels anything at all. In their hearts, the God has turned human. And once a God becomes human, faith begins to die. Dissent in its final stage is not chaos. It is clarity, the moment when illusion collapses, and the truth, unbearable yet undeniable, stands naked before the eyes. The people know now that no one is coming to save them. Not the South, not the West, not their leader. They are alone. And yet, in that loneliness, something flickers, a fragile kind of freedom, born not of hope, but of exhaustion. Because when you have lost everything, fear loses its teeth, and somewhere deep in the countryside a whisper begins to spread again, not of prophecy, not of revolution, but of remembering. A simple phrase passed from mouth to mouth. We are still here. The regime cannot kill that. It can burn bodies, erase names, bury truth, but it cannot silence existence. The descent has reached its depth. The only way left is up. It begins, as revelations often do in North Korea, with a mistake. A train carrying military supplies derails in the western provinces, near the coast of Nampo. The wreckage burns for hours, visible even from satellite images. When the flames die, what remains is not a transport of weapons, but medical cargo, hundreds of boxes labeled in foreign script. The boxes bear the names of European companies, their contents marked as humanitarian aid. But they were never meant for the people. They were bound for an island few outsiders know exists, an island that appears on no official map. The soldiers who arrive to contain the fire are told to remain silent. They do not ask questions. Yet one of them takes a photograph, a single frame showing the foreign label before it burns. That image, smuggled through a chain of traders, reaches the whisper line, the underground network of defectors and dissidents who still risk everything to transmit truth. Within weeks, it spreads across encrypted channels, confirmation that the regime's secret world is larger, richer and more hidden than anyone imagined. The whispers speak of islands, of laboratories, of tunnels beneath mountains, not myths but infrastructure. North Korea, they say, has become a labyrinth of hidden zones designed not for defense, but for preservation. Preservation of power, preservation of fear, preservation of Kim Jong-un's immortality. Satellite images confirm unusual patterns, new construction on small islands off the western coast, long airstrips carved into rock, heat signatures suggesting underground activity. The official explanation, scientific research. The truth, pieced together from defectors and intercepted communications, reveals something far stranger. These are isolation facilities built to house the regime's elite in the event of collapse. Equipped with luxury compounds, private hospitals, and communication arrays, they represent a parallel North Korea, one that will survive even if the rest of the country dies. It is called Project Eden. The idea was born years earlier, after Kim's mysterious health crisis. Advisors proposed a network of survival enclaves where the regime's most loyal could continue governance in secrecy. The public was never told. Workers were brought in blindfolded, forbidden to know where they were. When construction ended, most were executed to maintain silence. The rest were absorbed into the camps. In 2025, the truth begins to leak, not through rebellion, but through entropy. Systems fail, secrets decay. Somewhere deep in the Ministry of Information, a technician notices irregular data transfers between military satellites and a private network. He follows the trail and finds transmissions from the coast, encrypted, untraceable, looping nightly between Pyongyang and the islands. He reports it. Days later, he disappears. But not before copying the files. They contain blueprints, manifests, and the most damning evidence of all, a list of names. Party officials, generals, doctors, entertainers, thousands selected for continuity priority. Each name paired with a coded destination. These are the chosen. They will live beneath the surface when the nation above collapses. For the rest, there is no plan. The exposure of these truths begins slowly, like cracks spreading across glass. Among the elite, whispers turn to panic. Families realize their names are missing from the list. Jealousy becomes suspicion. Suspicion becomes betrayal. One minister denounces another for foreign contact. Another commits suicide before being purged. The hierarchy begins to consume itself, a silent civil war fought with smiles and dossiers. Meanwhile, the people notice changes they cannot explain. Supply trucks vanish from Pyongyang's streets. Generators are moved. Soldiers reappear with new uniforms marked by an unfamiliar insignia. A sun rising over a mountain. No one knows what it means. The regime calls it the Dawn Brigade. The brigade answers only to Kim Jong-un himself. Their task is to secure the new era. In reality, they are guarding the exits. As winter returns, the country's isolation deepens. The border remains sealed. Communication with China grows tense. Rumors circulate that Beijing, weary of its volatile neighbor, has withdrawn key support. Russian advisors arrive instead, offering technology in exchange for rare minerals. North Korea trades soil for silence. Then, one morning, an unusual broadcast interrupts the routine. The national network freezes mid-propaganda. Static fills the screens. For 12 seconds an image appears, a grainy shot of an underground tunnel lined with lights. A voice, distorted and trembling, speaks in Korean. "They are building their paradise beneath your suffering." Then it cuts. The government calls it a foreign cyber attack. But in homes across the nation, people replay those 12 seconds in their minds. For the first time, they sense that their leaders may be fleeing the very world they demand others die to protect. Faith fractures. Obedience wavers. The silence begins to tremble. Inside the regime, paranoia reaches fever pitch. The Ministry of State Security launches mass interrogations, hunting the source of the broadcast. Thousands vanish overnight. Villages are raided. Internet terminals are destroyed. But the message spreads faster than the repression can catch it. Their paradise, people whisper in markets, is not ours. The exposure ripples outward. In the borderlands, smugglers intercept coded radio transmissions, coordinates, schedules, and strange phrases like Eden Line and migration phase. The whisper line deciphers them piece by piece. They reveal convoys moving under the cover of darkness, heading toward the western coast. Buses with tinted windows, escorted by armed vehicles. Inside, the passengers are not prisoners. They are officials, scientists, families of the loyal. They vanish into the mist. One night, a fisherman near Nampo sees something that changes everything. He's out on the water, casting nets under the faint glow of the moon, when he spots lights beneath the sea, not from ships but from the depths. He rows closer. The water hums with the sound of engines. Then, slowly, a metallic platform rises from below, carrying vehicles and men. They unload crates, speak in hushed voices, and disappear again as the structure sinks back beneath the waves. The fisherman never tells anyone, but his son does months later when he escapes to China. His testimony, recorded in secret, confirms what satellites could not. North Korea is building an underwater network. Analysts believe it connects the coastal islands, allowing movement without detection. A kingdom beneath the sea where power can hide even if the land burns. In Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un reappears in public after months of absence. His face looks gaunt, his gait uncertain, but his voice carries the same cold conviction. He announces the beginning of the Eternal March, a new ideological campaign promising to elevate the pure and cleanse the impure. The crowd roars on command. The Dawn Brigade stands behind him, unmoving. No one notices the faint tremor in his hand. The campaign begins immediately. Citizens are divided into purity tiers. Loyalty scores are recalculated. Cities are purged of ideological pollution. Families are relocated to renewal zones. In reality, it's a cover for the regime's final consolidation before retreat. The state is no longer trying to rule, it's trying to survive its own decay. At the same time, foreign observers notice unusual energy readings along the Yellow Sea. The pattern resembles deep-sea construction, the kind used for undersea cables and reactors. Speculation explodes, but confirmation remains impossible. Journalists who report on it are hacked, their sources vanish. Still, the truth finds its way out. A defector working in coastal engineering reveals details of the Eden reactors, compact nuclear generators built to power the hidden islands. They said it was for defense, he recalls, but the power lines went inward, not outward. In other words, the light of North Korea's future would shine only underground. For the first time, the world sees what the regime truly fears. Not invasion, not sanctions, but exposure itself. Every secret built for survival becomes evidence of deceit. Every layer of protection becomes proof of corruption. And yet, within the country, exposure comes at a terrible price. The Whisper Lines network is uncovered. Dozens are executed in televised trials, accused of cosmic treason. Their families are erased from records, but the damage is done. The myth of unity is shattered. People know now that their leaders plan to leave them behind. In a small mining town near Musan, the workers stop chanting slogans. They still march, still carry banners, but the words mean nothing. During a rally, someone drops a flag. It lands in the mud and stays there. The officers watch, unsure whether to react. For the first time in decades, the silence is not obedience, it is defiance. Inside the palaces, Kim Jong-un watches from his private chamber, surrounded by screens streaming loyalty reports. His eyes flicker between maps and monitors, each red dot representing a protest, a malfunction, a betrayal. "Seal it," he says quietly. His advisors nod. The western regions go dark that night. Power cut, communications severed, roads closed. From space, half of North Korea disappears into shadow, but darkness once again fails to hide the truth. Satellite photos reveal faint glows offshore, the islands of Eden illuminated beneath the Black Sea. The world understands what the people already know. The leader has built his ark, and he intends to sail alone. The exposure changes everything. Diplomats scramble. Sanctions tighten. China distances itself. But none of it reaches the hungry streets of Hamhung or the frozen villages near Ryanggang. For them, truth is a luxury, survival the only currency. They do not see the islands. They see the sky, grey and empty, and wonder when the next meal will come. Yet even in that despair there is movement. Smugglers turn into messengers, defectors into teachers, memories into maps. The Whisper Line rebuilds itself across borders, using new frequencies, new voices. They broadcast one message again and again: the paradise is false. You are the real Korea. Somewhere, in a secret chamber beneath Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un listens to those words. He sits in silence, surrounded by gold, by power, by emptiness. For the first time, he feels something he cannot command, the slow, unrelenting approach of consequence. Because exposure is not the end of secrecy, it is the beginning of truth, and truth, once seen, can never be unseen. The tide begins to turn, the illusion begins to rot, the darkness, once impenetrable, begins to crack, and through those cracks light, pale, fragile, defiant, begins to seep in. Dawn over Pyongyang. The city looks peaceful from above, a symmetrical landscape of grey towers and empty streets, statues gleaming under the rising sun. But beneath the calm, something has shifted. The silence no longer feels controlled. It feels fragile, stretched thin across a nation that can no longer pretend. The slogans still hang on the walls, the portraits still shine under fluorescent lights, the broadcasts still praise a future that will never arrive. Yet the eyes of the people have changed. They no longer look up at the sky as if waiting for salvation. They look inward, toward memory, toward endurance. The year 2025 was meant to be North Korea's triumph, the completion of its great rejuvenation. The government promised abundance, technology, eternal glory. But what it delivered instead was revelation. The myth cracked, the mask slipped, and behind the curtain stood a frightened man surrounded by ghosts of his own creation. Kim Jong-un still appears in public, still speaks of destiny, still smiles. But the smile no longer fits the face. The world sees a leader performing his own divinity, trapped in a theater that has lost its audience. Within the walls of the Workers' Party headquarters, the elite whisper more openly now. They speak of contingency, of exit routes, of silent alliances. Their loyalty is a costume they wear out of fear. At night they dream of flight, not political flight, but escape from the weight of pretense. In a country built on worship, even believers grow weary. The famine deepens, markets shrink, food rations disappear. The government blames climate, blames sanctions, blames invisible enemies. But the people know what's missing cannot be blamed on weather. They know their grain feeds the army, their labor builds bunkers for the few, their sacrifices buy the illusion of control. For the first time, they see the equation clearly. In villages near the Chinese border, people no longer wait for permission to survive. They move quietly at night, crossing frozen rivers, bribing soldiers, risking everything. The escape routes are not as secret as they once were. Entire families vanish into the mountains, leaving behind nothing but a cold stove and a folded uniform. Some are caught, some die. But some make it, and their stories whispered back across the border remind those still trapped that the walls are not absolute. Inside the cities, resistance takes a quieter form. A worker refuses to bow deeply enough. A teacher skips a line in the morning pledge. A mother hides her son's ration card to save him from military service. These are not revolutions, but seeds. Seeds that sprout in silence, watered by suffering, nourished by truth. The regime cannot see them, but it feels them. An unease, a pulse beneath the surface. Even the propaganda begins to change. The broadcasts grow more desperate, more erratic. The music swells louder, the announcers' voices tremble. Our leader, they say, is the eternal sun that never fades. But people notice the darkness between the words. They sense that something is dying. Not the leader, not yet, but the faith that sustained him. When an idea that once ruled hearts begins to decay, it doesn't vanish overnight. It collapses inward, imploding under the weight of its own contradictions. In Pyongyang's elite schools, children are still taught that their country is the envy of the world, but the teachers can no longer fake conviction. They see the hunger in their students' faces, the hollowness behind their smiles. One night, a teacher looks out her window and sees the skyline of Pyongyang glowing faintly in the distance. For a moment, she imagines what it would look like if every light were real, if electricity flowed freely, if laughter replaced the sound of loudspeakers. The thought makes her cry, not out of hope, but out of grief for what could have been. The regime's control endures, but it is no longer absolute. The algorithms that monitor loyalty are corrupted by chaos. Too many missing, too many unreported deaths, too many false confessions. The data no longer matches the illusion. The system built to predict obedience begins to fail, overwhelmed by uncertainty. For the first time in decades, the government cannot see everything, and in that blindness, people begin to breathe. Abroad, the world watches, as it always has, cautious, analytical, distant. Diplomats issue statements, experts debate collapse scenarios, humanitarian agencies prepare for crisis. But what no one can predict is the slow transformation unfolding beneath the surface. North Korea is not breaking apart in an explosion. It is eroding, dissolving under the quiet pressure of reality. Its myths are losing weight. Its fear is losing shape. Kim Jong-un, the man who built his own legend out of silence, now lives surrounded by it. Inside his coastal compound, he walks through halls lined with portraits of his ancestors, their bronze faces watching from eternity. He sometimes stops before his grandfather's image and whispers something no microphone can capture. Perhaps it is a confession, perhaps it is fear, perhaps it is the recognition that even gods die alone. He still believes in control. He still believes the world will forget the suffering, that history will bend to power. But time does not obey tyrants. It erodes them. Like water-carving stone, it wears away the certainty of their monuments, the permanence of their names. In the countryside, the people rebuild their own meaning. A farmer plants potatoes on a patch of forbidden land. A girl keeps a diary under her floorboards. A young man listens to a smuggled radio station, hearing foreign voices for the first time. These small acts, invisible to the world, are revolutions of the soul. Somewhere near Hyasan, an old woman lights a candle in front of a hand-drawn cross. She prays not for freedom but for memory, that her grandchildren will one day know that their suffering was not fate, but choice. Her voice trembles, but it does not break. Faith in this place has no church, no priest, no altar. It exists only as endurance. The wind carries her prayer across the mountains, across the border, across the years. At the same time, new technology begins to pierce the blockade. Low-orbit satellites designed for civilian internet reach the edge of North Korean territory. Signals leak through. For a few minutes each night, people catch fragments of the world. News headlines, songs, faces. They see that the world is not burning, that life continues elsewhere. For some, it's unbearable. For others, it's liberation. Truth, even in fragments, is oxygen. In one of the underground islands, the Eden complex, the lights flicker. A storm disrupts power lines. Generators hum back to life. But for a brief moment, the elite taste what their people have endured for generations: darkness. In that moment, one of the scientists looks out a reinforced window toward the mainland. The sea is black, the sky endless. He wonders if perhaps the light they sought to preserve was never theirs to begin with. History will remember North Korea's 2025, not for war, nor for collapse, but for exposure. A year when illusion met gravity and began to fall. A year when the world glimpsed the machinery of fear, and those inside it glimpsed their own humanity. The fall is not loud. It does not come with explosions or revolutions. It comes with exhaustion, with awakening, with the quiet refusal to believe. Someday the statues will crack, the portraits will fade, the slogans will lose their echo. And when they do, there will be no great uprising, no cinematic victory. There will simply be people walking into the sunlight, unsure, unafraid, unchained. Because the end of tyranny is not marked by celebration. It is marked by silence. A silence that no longer belongs to fear but to freedom. In the final image, Pyongyang stands still. The camera rises above the city, above the rivers, above the mountains. From that height, the land looks peaceful, untouched. The voice of the narrator returns, quiet, steady, solemn. Imagine a country built on silence. Now imagine that silence breaking. The sound it makes is not an explosion. It is a whisper, fragile, human, unstoppable. And that whisper says only one thing: we are still here.